Today I'm going to be making a coat. Okay, I'm not going to be making it all in one day. It will probably take just over a week. And I know that because I've made one for myself. This will be my second go around. I'll be making one for my sister. Now the pattern I am using is a gorgeous pattern by Gertie. I will link or include her information down below. And this is her swing coat pattern. It's a beautiful 1950s, probably early 1960s style coat. And not only does it hang and look gorgeous, but if you're like me, a beginner/intermediate sewist or maker, you should be okay handling this. There's some unique things about it, but it is doable, and there are not too many intense coat tailoring requirements to complete it. So I'm making this coat for my sister, and there's two changes that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm going to be doing. One is the hem. She is a little bit shorter than me, so I'm going to be pulling it up a bit. And the second is I might add one of those loops in the neckline that you could potentially hang it on a hook from. Now, I know you wouldn't want to do that all the time. I'm going to have to be doing some research about it because I think I need to probably cut that fabric on the bias, make almost a strap, probably be careful about how I sew it in because you don't want it to distort the coat or the fabric if you do hang it from there, but it's kind of a backup emergency way of hanging the coat. Sometimes when you go places or go out for dinner, things like that, there's not always a hanger available and potentially only a hook. So I will look into that. Maybe I won't add it in. I'll do some research, but we'll get there. The first thing to do will be to alter that pattern. Now, she is a very similar size to me in regards to this pattern. The main requirement or the sizing that you want to be the most mindful of is the upper bust. That's where the coat is probably most fitted. And then obviously the bust size. So with that combination, she will be wearing the same size coat as me. However, like I said, I'm gonna pull that hem up. I started off my Sunday by pulling out the pattern pieces and cutting on the adjustment line. Now these patterns include the best point where to cut and either shorten or lengthen the coat to your desire. This is a really wonderful feature that I like because not only does it show you where to cut, but it lets you know which exact pattern pieces you do need to adjust. So I really like these patterns for their ease, their size inclusivity. They have a wonderful size range and attention to detail. This particular pattern is a PDF format, so printing and putting it together is its own fun but extremely lengthy task. So I was very, very happy that I could use the same pattern pieces for my sister's coat. Now, at this moment I realized that I ran out of tape in my house, but luckily I had hockey tape lying around. And I know that seems very, very silly and rather Canadian, but it's true. It's what I had, and I had a lot of it. I'm not gonna lie though, I actually prefer or like this tape for this particular purpose. It has a lot of flexibility, and that's really nice when laying the pattern pieces on all the fabric I will be using. So I realized over the past few years that I have inadvertently developed a method in a way I approach making my items. I tend to like to set aside an entire day, usually a Sunday, where I can prep my pattern, cut my fabric, transfer markings, and get my machine ready. Now, I don't know if I'm slow at this process or it just actually takes this long to do, but I tend to need hours to cut my fabric, so a full day is absolutely necessary. Not only do I need tons of time, but this is one of my least favorite things to do in the process. So I make it as relaxing as possible and I go in with a plan, otherwise it feels like a massive chore. I'm aware that these steps are absolutely necessary, and I do take my time. I don't rush them. If I rush them, I can affect things like the grain line, or I'm marking the wrong pieces, or you can make an incorrect cut and then you've had it because you only have so much fabric. But it doesn't mean I like it. I just know I need to do it. So the last step here is me just prepping my machine, loading up some bobbins with some thread, putting in some new needles, making sure the tension's right, and getting ready to go. Here I finally start to get a bit excited because I know the fun part, or my favorite part, is coming up. It's time to finally start sewing the coat. Now the first step here is one of the scariest things in this pattern, and it is a bound buttonhole. But at the same time, it's one of the most beautiful details that I find really elevates the garment. And honestly, with some practice, it's completely doable. Just make sure you practice this first on a scrap piece of fabric so you can go in with confidence. As this was my second time making this coat, I did actually have to remind myself to slow down and don't go in overconfident. Actually take my time, read the instructions, and take a deep breath before making this first cut. You only have one piece of fabric for this, to be completely honest. It's a massive panel, and you probably don't have extra left over in case you make a mistake. So big breaths and take it slow. You've got it. It was finally time to start sewing the larger pieces together, and I love seeing everything come together and start to resemble the actual garment. I'm always in awe of pattern makers. They have to be so aware of how different techniques, fabrics, stitches, and so on can affect a garment, how it will hang, how it will wear. I hope to one day to be able to make more of my own self-drafted items, but for now I love trying patterns where I can practice my skills and learn something new. These sleeves, for example, I've tried this technique a few times and I'm starting to feel a lot more confident in it. It's amazing. You can take a rectangular piece of fabric and by pulling some bobbin threads, you have a sleeve cap. After a few nights on and off, it was time to start the lining. But first, that means switching the thread color and adjusting tension. I'm always a bit more confident and comfortable at this point. It's like a round two, and you basically make the same coat all over again. Here I'm giving my seams a pinking shear treatment. I'm a big fan of pinking shears. I just feel like fabrics such as this tend to fray a lot, and I don't want fraying hairs popping out between the seams in a couple of years. At this point, my excitement's rising again. I feel so close, but so far from the finish line. It's time to put the lining and the outer coat together. It's at this point that I would have added that hook loop as well, but I really decided not to do it. It would pull and distort the coat. The fabric would hang weird. It just wouldn't be good for the garment, so I nixed it. I mostly worked on this in the evenings. After work, after dishes, after my son went to bed, it was my me time. And I love this as my me time. I'm so happy and proud of what I've managed to complete. And up to this point, I've only made things for myself. This was probably one of the first garments, if not the first one, that I've made for someone else. And there's many reasons for that. One is I'm happy to wear something that I've made for myself with slight errors or things that are a bit off with it, but I'd be self-conscious giving that to someone else. However, this coat is for someone who I love, who I care a lot about, and I know will accept it with no judgment and love the garment as much as I do. Here I am at one of the very last steps. It's finally time to hem the coat by hand. This part can still feel like a chore to me at times, so what I like to do is press up the hem like you're meant to and throw on some Netflix. Sit down, know that this may take me a couple of hours, especially with this coat. It's got quite a lengthy hem, but it's not so bad if approached from the mindset that it's going to take some time and just relax. There's no rush, just take your time. I didn't have a thimble here, which is a bit silly. I don't know why I don't have a thimble. I didn't come out unscathed. I did poke myself a few times, and one of those was quite bad. I did need a band-aid. I had to take a break, go clean it, and cover it up because I didn't want to stain anything. But next thing on my to-buy list probably should be a thimble. After this, I marked where it should be and attached the button to the front and gave it a few more presses where it needed it, a bit of a steam, a lint roll from all the fraying of the fabric, and passed it over to my sister.